What are we speaking about today? We're speaking about breaking through spiritual resistance. Breaking through spiritual resistance. I want this to be a discussion of sorts, so I don't want to sit here and talk for 30 minutes, but this topic came up like many topics do from conversations and interaction that we have. And I was speaking to a friend. We were talking about, 3 weeks ago we were talking about accountability, keeping each other accountable. So this person is always a source of accountability in that sense. And they asked me, they always check up on me, so I'm like, hey, how are you doing? How's your walk with Christ? Like, how's your spiritual life? And we're talking or whatever, and they said something very interesting. I was like, listen, man, like I know it sucks, but like you need him, right? Referring to Christ. And he said, yeah, but you also, many people know that if you don't exercise, a lot or properly, you're at a greater risk of dying early, for instance, right? But still, they don't do it, right? And we know this concept of we need Christ, we need the church, we need spirituality, yet we don't do it. Like many other things, right? You can say the same thing about exercise. You can say the same thing about studying. You can say the same thing about having a healthy balance between work and friends and church and all this stuff, right? So it's not just spirituality, but especially spirituality. We know it is good for us, but we don't do it, right? So there is a resistance there. And today I want to speak about how do we break through that resistance. What is sin? What is sin? What's sin? You always hear about it in a phrase. Sin is what? Yes?
Missing the mark.
Missing the mark. That's exactly the answer I was looking for. Sin is missing the mark. What is the mark, though? Right? We always hear that. Sin is missing the mark. What is the mark?
Falling short of the glory of God.
Falling short of the glory of God. Yes. So we're missing the mark by falling short of the glory of God. By doing what we know is right, because it was given to us. Actually, it's built in us, right? It's ingrained in us. I think Abuna mentioned, right? Even like humans, as a Christian human, without having to read the Bible, you know that murder is wrong. Right? You don't have to read something to know it is wrong, right? It's kind of ingrained in you, right? It is the way that we were created. So not only is it ingrained, but we also read it, right? We've been told about it. We've been speaking about it our whole lives. So this idea of missing the mark. But sometimes missing the mark, and I liken it to, doing poorly on a test, or messing up in something doing something you know is wrong. Oftentimes, what does that do? It actually reveals to you what is right. Right? So, when we miss the mark, if you just focus here, when we miss the mark, it actually sometimes, it's not great, but actually we can use it to our benefit. Why is that? Because oftentimes, we don't realize that we're missing the mark until something goes very wrong, right? Or something drastic happens, and we're like, oh, actually now I get it. I get what I've been doing wrong, or I need to do something differently now, right? So oftentimes, missing the mark could be good sometimes, right? Because it actually reshapes us. It helps us get back on, okay, I know I was going this way, I made a U-turn, it actually ended up very poorly, and now I want to get back. So, and where does that bring us? Oftentimes when we want to get back to this path, right, we're thinking about where we came from as opposed to where we want to go. Okay, and this is what brings us to resistance. This word resistance. I've been reading this book called The War of Art. And the entire concept of the book is that all creative people, all artists, all entrepreneurs, all whatever, something that involves creativity, there's this thing called resistance, right? An author, for instance, faces resistance. When they want to do something difficult or when they want to do something new, there's this thing in their head that says, hey, you're actually not qualified to do this. Actually, this is not in your skill set to do this. Actually, you're not trained enough to do this. This is not a rational thing for you to do, right? And that same thought applies in our spiritual lives consistently, right? Because when we want to get back, when we want to focus and refocus on Christ, and when we know something is wrong, something is right, but we're consistently being reminded of all the wrong we've done, right? So oftentimes when we want to get back, we're faced with all these things about the past. What was the past like? Right? You can't get there because that's not you. You haven't done that. So how can you do it? Right? That's what we call resistance. Resistance are these thoughts in our head, these voices, these people maybe, that remind us of who we are or who we were, not where we want to go. That makes sense? Who's faced resistance? It's 5 people, 6 people? If you did not raise your hand, you don't know what resistance is, because everybody in this room has faced resistance in their life. Right? When you want to accomplish something new, or you want to start something new, or you want to reshape your life with Christ, or you want to restart it, you face resistance. Okay? And the resistance comes from the reminder of what I've been doing versus where I want to be. Okay? Now, how do you break through this resistance? We have to know that there are two, it actually says in this book, I want to read this exactly. They say, are you a victim of resistance? Most of us have 2 lives. The life we live and the life unlived within us. Okay? The life we live and the life unlived within us. So everybody is living a life, but simultaneously they want to live another life simultaneously, the better life. Right? The life they seek versus the life they have. Right? The life they seek versus the life we have. Meaning, every single day I'm going out and I'm engaged in these actions, I'm engaged in these activities, I'm going to work, I'm going to school, I'm hanging out with my friends, I'm going to church. But simultaneously, we want to be a better version of ourselves. But in between that, there's this barrier of resistance. Right? So all of us have that. Right? Because we can always become better, we can always take a step forward in life. Whether it's in our professional life, our personal lives, or our spiritual lives, that exists simultaneously. And the reason why we don't cross over this is this idea of resistance. Okay? So I want you to think about that. Right? That there are 2 lives. There's the life we have and the life we could have if we broke through this resistance. Now, why do we fail to break through? Right? We're reminded we don't follow through. We're reminded of the promises that we made God before. God, remember that time I promised you that if you gave me this thing, I wouldn't do X, or I would recommit to Y, or I would love you more, I would be with you more, or I would come to you more. Right? So we're reminded of all the promises that we've made versus what our current life is like. Right? If you get me through this exam, I promise I'm going to stop doing this thing. Or I'm going to stop seeing this person. Or I'm going to stop engaging this activity. Right? So we're reminded of all the past things that we are consistently doing. The voice that, dude, girl, you're not better than this. Right? This is you. This is you. This activity, this action, this lack of commitment, this is you. You're not that person you want to be. You're this person. Right? You're this person that, to Anton's point, keeps missing the mark. Right? That voice that keeps telling you that. Right? That's resistance. Or you're just not good enough. You're not good enough. Right? That voice that's telling you, listen, you don't have the discipline, you don't have the determination, you don't have that relationship with God to get to that point. So just relax and just don't try. Right? Because you're not good enough. Who's faced that? Who's faced any of the four things that I said? Yeah. Potentially almost every day, right? Now, how do you know you're facing resistance? It's this feeling of depression, right? It's this feeling of, and who just mentioned Mental Health Awareness Month, one of you, right? Now there's a national day recognizing mental health, right? And they're talking about, the voices in our head, the depression that we're facing, all the things that keep us stagnant in our ways, right? So it's not only just this feeling of depression, but it's this feeling of I'm not good enough, and we take that, we twist it, and now, have you ever felt like you couldn't get somewhere or you couldn't reach a mark? So the person that is in that position, you end up talking about them, or you end up giving them reasons why they're there and you're not there. Right? They had a better upbringing. Their parents grew up in the church. They knew God before me, or they read a lot, or I'm not smart. All these things that we tell ourselves. When you start feeling those things, or you're telling yourself those things, that's resistance. That's when you know you're actually physically entrenched in the resistance. Right? You've accepted it. Right? There's a resistance up. I'm going to stay here. But anybody that's broken through the resistance, I'm going to talk about those people. Or I'm going to pick out something wrong with them. Yeah, they're really spiritual, but remember that time when they did that thing? Or the type of people they hang out with? Or the type of people that they're with? Or so you start making these excuses of why they're there and you're not, right? To make yourself feel better of like that thing that you haven't been able to break through. So if you're feeling those things, or you're feeling some sort of depression, or you're starting to judge people on the other side of that resistance, that's when you know that you're dealing with it. Now, how do we get there? How do we end up accepting this resistance? I mean, I'm breaking this down because it's very important to understand how we got to the position that we're in, so that through God's grace we can work with Him to get ourselves out. Right? So how do we get there? It's this idea of rationalization. Right? It's not rational. He in the book he likens it to when painters paint these great, majestic things that last throughout history, or when the Golden Gate Bridge was created, or when Picasso made his paintings, or when, right, there's always this thought of resistance, right? But if they didn't break through it, none of these works would have happened. But as you're about to start them, there's something called rationalization that hits you. Right? What's this idea? Rationalization hits you with the truth, right? It is very hard to do these things. It is very hard to stop a habit that you've been entrenched in for 10 years. Right? If you've been dealing with the same sin for 10 years, that is a difficult thing for you to stop. Right? We agree? If you've been dealing with the same thing for 10 years, very difficult for you to stop, correct? That's a rational thought. Right? But that is what we're constantly reminded of, right? We're consistently hit. This is actually one of the tricks of the devil, right? When he was tempting Christ, what did he tempt him with? Food. Or he tempted him with partial truth, right? He tempted him with something that was rational, right? He tempted him with something that is rational. But Christ broke through that by actually acknowledging the rationale, but also digging through it and like seeing around it and calling him out, right? And using that same kind of like trickery, he hit him back with the truth. He's like, yeah, I know what that says in the Bible. You're right. If I drop from here, the angels will grab me, right? That's fine. But then what happens, right? He's like, don't tempt your God, right? So he hit him back with the truth. So a lot of the time, we're faced with these concepts and these ideas that could be truthful. It is very hard to stop a sin that I've been doing for 10 years. But we know that it's not impossible. Right? We know with God it's not impossible. And how can great work start if you don't break through that resistance? Right? If you do not break through that resistance, how do great work start? Who's in the medical profession? Many people, right? Many people. How long does it take to become an actually well-paying doctor?
Too long.
Too long. Potentially a lifetime. Right? My friends who have been studying for 20 years are still taking exams. I don't know how, but they're still studying and taking exams. Right? But for it to be worth it, for them to get to the other side, to break through that resistance, it takes like 25 years. Crazy. I don't know why you guys do it. But God bless. Right? It's still, that's what it requires. Right? So there is so much resistance that actually, if there were smart people, they would stop. No, I'm just kidding. There's so much resistance, but at the end, they've accomplished this goal to not only have a good living and a good life and blah blah blah, but like fundamentally change somebody's life at the end of all that. Right? Nothing great comes without resistance. Right? Like greatness comes through resistance. You need resistance to actually be great, because if there was none, it wouldn't be worth it. So, how do we relate this back to our spiritual lives? How do we relate this back? Relate it back by understanding that a lot of the things that we're all kind of going through, and all the struggle, like the internal mental struggling that we're dealing with, or physical struggling that we're dealing with, all of this is kind of hardening you, strengthening you to do what? To be on the other side and to truly know God, right? To truly understand God, right? But how do you get to the other side? How do you get to the other side? Let's start. So, what we really have to do to start getting to the other side is understand a couple of things, right? To stay on this side of resistance, so let's say this is the line and on the other side of resistance, but to get across it, we have to understand three things. We're consistently staying on this side because what? Because staying on this side is what?
It's comfortable.
It's comfortable. It's easy. What else? What else?
It's safe.
Safe. We know this side. I know if I go here, I know what it's going to be like. I know if I go here, I know what it's going to be like. I understand the whereabouts. I've been here before. I'm kind of safe. I feel good inside this, right? I haven't died yet. That's good, right? Right? Like this is good. This is okay. I can have fun on this side, right? But we know this side is actually where glory is. But we haven't necessarily experienced it. Maybe we experienced it one time, but we forgot what that was like, right? But Buddha tells us every week. He tells us glory is on this side. Like, why don't I just go? Why? I see an spirit. I see joy there, right? He's experienced it. I know. But why am I not going? Because it's easy, it's comfortable, it's effortless. We know it. It's a habit now, right? Being here is habitual. But how do I break through? I break through by acknowledging the fact that it kind of sucks here. It kind of sucks here. Because here is also knowing that I could be there, right? That second life that we talked about earlier, right? Fundamentally, everybody has two lives. The one that they have right now in this box, right? Prior to breaking through resistance, and then the one they could have fundamentally once they break through resistance. And we know how, we could only imagine what that's like. But we know it's good. Right? But here it kind of sucks. And how do we know it sucks? Because we're having those feelings that we talked about earlier. Right? Those feelings of, I don't feel good in my own shoes. There's been several times that I want to get close to God, and I don't, and I fall short because I fall back into it's not a great feeling. Right? So, acknowledging in that, and kind of like sitting in that, and now I want to do something. Because from that, I don't want to keep feeling like this. So getting tired of missing the mark. You have to get tired of it. It's exhausting, and I'm over it. And I want to do something. What does it require to do something? What does it require? What's the one thing it requires? It requires, because I can tell you, okay, it requires prayer, and it requires fasting, and it requires a father of confession, and we know all this stuff. But not only does it require for you to be tired, but it requires for you to be disciplined. Like serious discipline. If you ever, in your own careers or your own life or your own schools, when you were not disciplined in your study, what happened? Did bad. You did poorly, right? Like you did very bad. When you are not disciplined in checking up on your friends or being with your friends or caring about these friendships, what happened? You lost them. Right? If you're in a relationship and you're not disciplined in checking up on your significant, you lose them. Right? They feel like they're unwanted or unmet, like their needs are not met. All that stuff. Right? So, the idea that we haven't known God or we haven't met God, we fundamentally have not been disciplined in this relationship. Right? We've been disciplined in our service, our relationship with service. We've been disciplined. Right? Many of you around the room serve. You've been disciplined in your church life. Right? You've been disciplined in your church life. You've been disciplined with your friends. You've been disciplined with all this stuff. But the one thing we haven't been disciplined in is with God. The thing that we quote unquote are seeking. We've been doing this for 20 years. 20 years. And we think it's just supposed to happen. And we get tired. And we're like, why? I've been praying and I ask God for all the things that I want and still hasn't happened. And you know, I haven't really felt him, or I haven't really met him yet. Why? Because it's been you haven't broken through. Why? Been reading. I talked about this a couple weeks back. The story of Job. Why did God end up answering Job? Why do you think God answered Job? How long is Job? How many chapters is it? 42. Okay? 42 chapters. It's 42 chapters. When did he answer him? He answered him in like 38. Okay? Job's good friend, like the fourth friend, answered him in like 36 to 37, and God answers him in 38. Okay? And it took, so you're saying, the first two chapters of Job, basically, all the bad things happened to him, and I'm not kidding, from 3 to 36 is just Job and his friends, and there's just a lot of wailing, and yet just anger and sadness, but God answers him in like 38. Why did God answer him? Why?
Why he didn't answer him?
Why did he answer him?
Why did he?
Yeah, he ended up answering him, right? He talked to him. He said, "Who are you? Who are you to question my greatness? Who are you? Are you the one that created the heavens and the earth and all the things that you see?" Why did he answer him? I think he answered him because he's consistent, right? He's consistent. He's like, God, I want to know why you did this. I want to know why you took everything away. I want to know blah, blah, blah. And for us, once we face a difficult time, or once something doesn't go our way, or once we forget God or we lose God, we complain once, what do we do? God's not here anymore. That's it. I'm not speaking to him anymore. But for 30-something chapters, this man is wailing about losing everything in his life, right? And there's resistance, right? Like there's that resistance. He's looking for an answer. There's no answer, and he keeps crying. He keeps yelling. He's writing. I've never seen somebody basically complain more, right? Over the course of an entire book. But at the end, God answers him. Because he was consistent, because he was disciplined. Right? There is glory after that. Right? There is glory after resistance. Because what do we see in Job's story? What's he get?
Everything I want.
Yeah. And it says, and God blessed Job's life tenfold from his earlier life. Right? So, we know in all these stories that there is glory at the end. But what we do is we use our comfort and we use our fear and we use our convenience as a way to give up. Right? We give up too early. We give up too early. And in this one thing, if you were to give up in everything except for this, it'd be good. Because then you know what the ultimate glory is. Right? But in this one thing, we give up quicker here than we give up in anything else. People take the MCAT 5 times. They don't pass. We're like, I'm passing on the 6th time. But with God, it takes one thing and we're like, I'm out. I'm gone. I'm gone. Because we get so caught up in the fact that we are living in sin. Sin is missing the mark. It's doing an action or doing something and missing the mark that one time. The time it becomes a lifestyle is when you think that sin is you. And it's not you. It's not you. The sin is not you. The sin is not you. Right? You are not confined by sin because it was trampled, right? Like it's been destroyed. But we allow it to destroy us because we think, okay, now this is me. This is who I am. This is what I've been dealing with for the past 10 years, past 30 years. But we need to break through. We need to break through that resistance, and it fundamentally just takes discipline. I don't care if you don't feel God for 10 to 15 days. You sit with Him. You sit with Him. Take out your Bible. You sit with Him in silence. Whatever you need to do. And don't feel Him. That's fine. Just be there. Right? And just make it part of the routine. Like you wake up, you brush your teeth, add that in. And He'll be there, right? Like He's going to answer. But there needs to be some consistency, like we have consistency with everything else. Does anybody have any questions? No? Yes?
How do you start being disciplined?
Huh?
How do you start being disciplined?
How are you disciplined with anything?
You do it. Just do it.
Okay.
No, how are you disciplined with anything?
You start. Start.
Listen, I'll tell you how you're disciplined. There are many people that they don't take school seriously, or they don't take their life seriously until they realize that it's fundamentally hurting them. Right? So it's one or two things. You wait till that happens, and you're like 10 years behind everybody else. Or you take Buddha's word for it, right? And you start putting it in your routine. It's one or two ways, right? It becomes important out of necessity because you're dying, right? And maybe you're not physically dying, but like you're losing things, you're losing your foundation, you're losing whatever. Or on the other side, you ultimately just work to build this in. Nobody wants to go to the gym. Why do they do it? Because they want to get good at this, right? They want to look good, they want to feel good, whatever it is, right? But it sucks. So whatever it takes for you to wrap your mind around it, or whatever it takes for you to be disciplined in it, 5 to 10 minutes, do it. Just do it.
I
I think also having a goal really helps with discipline. If you have something that you're looking towards or something that you like hope to accomplish, and then in that you can make smaller goals. Like, okay, I'm gonna, for example, pray for 10 minutes today. Like, if you can quantify what you want to do at least at first, like something you can hold yourself accountable to. Not like, oh, I'm gonna pray more. What's
Yeah.
more? How are you gonna measure more? How are you gonna know if you're actually doing it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think creating small goals for yourself, but also we talked about this, like accountability, right? Having one or two people, and it doesn't have to be your best friends. It could be somebody in this room that you don't actually know that well, but you're like, hey, listen, you wanna give this a shot? You want me to hold you accountable? I'll do the same for you. It works. Yes.
So I think what Tom was asking about.
Sure.
So in the book I was reading, kind of there was like a little section where he said, get out of your mind and imagine you're in a big empty room and go to one of the corners in the room and look at yourself. Now look at the end goal, and instead of looking at the whole, like let's say it's a story, instead of looking at the whole story, break it up into small actionable things. So like, because when you succeed at something, when you accomplish something, you get like very happy, and like it's like a little boost. Like like you put more gas in your engine. So like,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Okay.
What if, what if I don't want to discipline myself? And I feel comfortable in this area and I don't want to break the resistance. There is no motive for me. I'm not in the part of hitting rock bottom, so there is no necessity for me to move from this area.
Yeah.
And I don't see